Well, hey folks, pretty excited that you're thinking about podcasting, and I get it. You're not sure about how to use the gears. So this is going to be a few minutes with a quick overview of the RODEcaster all-in-one studio deck, how to use it for the basics, and let's dive in and let's check it out. So first things first, what is the RODEcaster? The RODEcaster is a self-contained recording studio. It's kind of like a sound mixing desk where you've got the little sliders you can kind of move up and down. They're going to control volume and things. But it does a lot more than that. It actually has built into it some signal processing for things like noise gate and levels. What that means is it's using its wizardry to block out pops and sounds and background noise. It's not going to be perfect, but it does a lot of things for you to make it basically a one-touch, let's go and record. So first things first, let's look at the board. You see you've got 4 options here, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're numbered. You've got your sliders so you can control your volume up and down. And on the volume, you'll notice that you've got the little dashes, and then one of them is a little bit stronger, like a bowl dash. So that's kind of the optimal level. You can't make too many mistakes with this. You'll notice that mine's slightly higher. I like to go just a little bit over, but even if I went all the way to the top, it's still not going to distort and go crazy with sound. The board's still going to try and use its magic to get things where it needs to be. Now, obviously, I'm recording on my own right now. The real benefit of the sliders and the levels is when you're recording with another person, maybe you've got a guest in the studio or 2 guests. This way you can get your voices to be at the same level, because you might have a stronger voice than they do, or they may have a stronger voice than you. And that's really where the levels are going to come in, and you can tweak them a little bit so that everybody kind of sounds the same volume. Because if someone's listening to you recording, the last thing you want is for you to be really quiet and them to be really loud. No one's going to want to listen to that. So get that level right. Use your headphones. There's 4 headphone outs. Obviously, I'm plugged into one here. I'm feeding a headphone out to the camera that you're actually watching this on. So I'm pushing my audio straight through. Over this side of the board, after 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and actually before we get there, obviously, you'll see I've got my cables plugged in. So I'm using 1 and 3 right now. 1 is for this mic. 3 is for my boom mic that's out of the shot. And these just plug straight in the back. You're going to see a shot of the back of the RODEcaster here, just so that you can see what that is. We use color-coded cables. At my co-working spaces, I use color-coded cables in my studio as well. That way it's super easy for me to see, hey, look, I'm talking into the cable that's orange. The orange one's right here, so I know that this is the slider I want to use. I don't have to think about which one's 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want, you can label them up and do it that way too. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just like stuff simple because I'm a simple guy. Ignoring the 4 inputs, let's look at the other side of the deck, because you got 4 more sliders. 1 is a USB sign, and as it suggests, you can plug in USB on the back of the board and you can feed audio in. So you're doing a Zoom call, using a computer, something like that. You can feed that audio in and you can control it here and there. The second one is a phone. You can actually connect a phone to the RODEcaster by Bluetooth. So I could be having a conversation with somebody on a phone call, and I could be feeding that phone call in here, connected via Bluetooth and recording the conversation. And I actually did a podcast episode using this very technique early on in my podcasting career. It's not great. I definitely wouldn't recommend it if you have other options available, but if you don't, it's a great way to be able to do it. And then finally, this slider over to the side, which you're probably not going to use a whole lot. The RODEcaster has 8 presets for sound. And so this is the sound slider. Think of it as sound effects. So you can program these to be whatever you want. You could program a jingle on there or some sound effects that you use on a regular basis. So I have a podcast, and if I wanted to, I could have my intro on here, or I could have a few people laughing while I'm talking, or even clapping. Some of these are the presets that came with the board, and I haven't really changed them. But you can definitely have fun with it. And you can program these 8, and then you can have a second bank of 8 as well, which you can control from the mixing desk. Get a little bit more advanced. Don't worry about it too much. Headphone volumes here, I just usually leave everything right at the halfway line, and I just leave it at that. Don't really mess with them a whole lot. And the most important button of all across this entire mixing desk, this bad boy right here. Don't forget to hit record. It happens to the best of us. You're in the studio, you got a ton of things going on, you got the camera, you got wires everywhere. Do not, if that's not red, you are not recording, okay? By default, it's going to be green when you're not recording. When you're recording, it's going to be red. If it's blue, it means you hit the record button, but you forgot to put your memory card in. So it's not recording. Okay. Anything other than red is a problem. So take it from me. It is what it is. Now then, you've got an LCD screen here. This screen lets you do a number of different things. For an average person using the board, you're not going to need to worry about this. If you're actually watching this video because you're using the board at one of my co-working spaces, leave all that alone. You don't need to change it, mess with it, or whatever you want. If you haven't used a board before, you can go in here. So as I move through the sound banks, so you see here, I've got an MT show. And this is actually, I'll fade that down a little bit, the background intro for my podcast. And you can go listen to that obviously and hear how it goes. And then I've also got my opening, which is a slightly modified version. And I've got the closing, which you can hear is super quiet because it actually is going to fade in as I'm talking through the episode. So I have my closing set for about a 45-second window so that when I'm getting close to finishing, I can just hit the button and start, not worry about the levels, and it'll slowly get louder and louder and help the guests know, and also help the listeners know, hey, we're approaching the end of this episode. So it gives people kind of a clean level of closure to switch off and move on to whatever it is they're doing next. Other things you can do from the settings here if you want to play around with things. I can go look at the memory card. I can see how long I've got left. And then within this settings option, now you'll see I got my brightness, I got my headphones. The real magic happens in audio. And I can start to make changes to how it handles processing, which kind of things I want turned on and off. I can look at the operations and I can turn things on and off. And I can also go back to the inputs themselves. Here's the channels. Now I can go to each channel. So I'm currently talking on channel 1. I can go into 1 and I can say, okay, let's look at the microphone, the level, and the audio processing. The microphone, I can choose what kind of mic I'm using because some mics need more power, push out from the board than others. I'm actually using a Rode pod mic, so I've selected that because Rode has these set. But if you're just using a standard condenser or standard dynamic, you can change that too. I can go into my levels and now I can change this and I can turn phantom power on as well. So for example, in my studios at the co-working spaces I own, we use Audio Technica mics. They need phantom power, so we have that turned on, and it pushes additional voltage, I guess, down the microphone cable to the microphone itself and makes it a little bit more juiced up and a little bit more sensitive to pick up the voice. Again, if you're super loud, super quiet, you can change that level as a default. For the most part, I leave these things pretty standard audio processing, high pass filter, noise gate, the de-esser. I leave all of these things pretty much as standard. If you're just starting out with a RODEcaster, I would encourage you not to play with those things too much. Get used to the board, get used to recording. Don't worry about that. There's very little you can't fix in post as long as your levels are generally decent and you haven't got a lot of background noise that you need to take out after the fact. So let's look at the back of the board and take a look at that. So the back of the board's very straightforward. I got my 4 mic inputs, standard XLR microphone cables, so no USB mics here. Nice and easy to find, nice and reasonably priced. I got my headphone jacks, so I can use these as audio out to a computer, audio out to a camera, headphone out, obviously. And then I've also got my power cable, my USB cable. So that's going to be a USB-C to a computer or a laptop. That's going to feed audio out for a Zoom or something like that. And it's going to feed audio in as well. So that's the way that I record my podcasts through Zoom using a computer. And then finally, you got the micro SD card slot. It's the single best thing about the RODEcaster. I don't need a laptop to record. I can pick this up. I can go put it in my mobile travel case, take a microphone with me, take a set of headphones with me, and I'm good to go. That micro SD card, it's going to record for hours and hours and hours, depending on the size of the card that you've got. And it records perfectly and flawlessly straight to the card. No additional gear needed. It's what makes it so easy to use, so simple, and it's why I like the RODEcasters. So thanks for watching. Hope it's helped you get the most of your RODEcaster if you're just starting out with one. If you're thinking about buying one, highly recommend them. I've played with a few different boards. These are by far my favorites. So I'll put a link in the description if you need it. And until next time, let's go out there and be amazing.